Hey everyone, welcome back to another new episode of Modern SaaS Podcast. Today we have our special guest back, Mark Stagi. Mark is a VP of Customer Success at Avoma. Mark, welcome back.
Awesome. Happy to be here. Looking forward to the conversation. It's another good and really meaty topic today. So can't wait to jump in.
Absolutely. And just for the context, so I think this was a week ago. I saw a post on LinkedIn, and it was more of a poll that somebody had posted. And they'd ask a question: do you charge for customer success? And specifically as a line item when you're selling your services or a SaaS service. And the responses were pretty overwhelming. And the kind of distribution of the responses were roughly around 68% people said that they don't charge for customer success as a special line item. But there were almost 16% people said that they do charge it as a special line item on top of the SaaS product or service that they're providing. But then more importantly, there were another 12, 13% people said that they don't do that today, but they want to and they are going to start charging for the customer success as well. So I thought, Mark, why don't we discuss this topic? And for me, obviously, rather than just thinking about do we charge today, the real question was that should businesses, SaaS businesses, charge for customer success as a special line item? So I would start there and see what are your high level thoughts.
I think from a high level, like a lot of things that you're solving for in business, there's no quick and dry answer. So I can't just say, oh yes, of course you should, or no, you shouldn't. But I think it comes down to first asking yourself three things. One, a very simple question, but not every company has the same answer for this, is what is customer success? So customer success in some companies, it may be a combination of, some ongoing account management. You're adding business value to them. You're engaging with customers on strategic conversations, making sure they're hitting their goals, but you're also doing onboarding. And you also might be doing some aspect of support, especially if you're a smaller company and you're still growing. So first, the CSM, if you look at a true CSM role, can be very, very mixed at a company. Again, they might handle renewals, they might not, they might handle upsells, they might not. So I think first you need to really clearly identify what a CSM is, what the value they're providing to customers is, and that helps in this equation. The other two things, I think there's actually three key components to first solving and then getting to an answer. The other piece, though, is if you look at how mature your product is and then how mature your CS org is as well. So both of those are equally important. If you are just starting out, say, you're a seed company, you have your first few CSMs, you're a Series A company or even a Series B company, and you're growing your product a lot. The product still, you have a product market fit, but it's not quite all the way where it needs to be yet. There's some building that still needs to happen. At that phase, I think that there's an easy answer, which is you're not ready yet to charge for CS. I think you want to overinvest in CSMs, have a lower ratio than typical, and really have that tight-knit product and CSM collaboration. So they're getting a lot of data, insights, and driving that into the product and how the product needs to mature over time. And then, I think the other piece, so those are two, but then there's another one too that factors into this, which is what segment do you serve? Do you mainly have an enterprise focused business with enterprise customers? And due to that, it's not just what segment are you taking care of, but what are their expectations? Because the expectation of a large scale enterprise company are going to be so vastly different than a small SMB customer, and the resources that you need to pour into that to hit and exceed those expectations are going to be different. So I think first you start with kind of those three questions, and then depending on that, you can go many different ways that I'm sure we'll get into some of the next level details.
This is exactly the reason why you're here. So when I read that poll, I thought, of course you should not charge. And I had that immediate, that knee-jerk opinion and reaction. But the way you explain, it's not black and white answer. You got to look at the stage of the company, your product market fit, how mature your product is, and what segment that you're really serving. And these nuances are absolutely
Hmm.
important. So loved every bit of that answer, and thank you for that clarity. And that this is exactly where, when I thought about it, I had a opinionated point of view, but I knew that I'm not the expert here, and there's something I could learn. And I'm glad that you shared that more holistic perspective, how to think about it. It's not just one way or other way, and there are nuances. And it seems like that essentially that you can start with
Yeah.
one model based on the stage, and it will keep evolving. So you should not also set and forget. You should revise it as your company is evolving, as the stage is evolving, as you're going after different market segmentation, as product is evolving. You should always have this topic on that mind. Hey,
Hmm.
are we going to charge for customer success or not? Leaning towards that, Mark. So let's assume, so the way people, so then essentially the way some of the examples I had seen, for example, when we bought HubSpot, obviously it's a all-in-one solution. There are lots of different things. And I felt that as a small startup, we needed help to go and implement some of those workflows, anyone just onboarding and explaining what it is.
Hmm.
But then when I bought it, we bought this annual subscription, and they said, okay, you want this onboarding, then you have to buy this extra package for onboarding. And I felt a little bad at that time. I was like, what? I paid you so much, and you're not going to help me to get onboarded. Why are you charging separately for onboarding and this whole customer success package? And I felt a little betrayed. I had this little bad taste in my mouth at that time. And that's where that opinion, you should not charge, came from that point of view. So how do you think about it? So because HubSpot is now mature, and that's why they are charging you, and then is the expectation is that if you don't want to pay, you go and figure out on your own. But isn't it in their best interest to help me get fully onboarded, set up well, and make sure that I get the most value, and the next year for the renewal? Because that, I still remember, this happened 2 years ago, and now you can imagine it. I still remember that experience where I felt bad about that, the way HubSpot treated us. What are your thoughts in terms of, should this be at all not in company's interest to not charge and always provide the best experience for onboarding for free?
Yeah. No, and that's a common take, and I think there's probably a couple things that happened in your case. One is, and then I'll get to the true answer, because my thoughts on this have actually evolved too over probably, I'd say, the last 10 years.
Mm,
I used to be in the camp that I would say, yes, for something like onboarding, the customer many times expects to pay if they're a larger customer. There's a lot of consulting type work that goes into that, so you should charge. So, I used to come from that frame of mind, but I'll kind of walk you through
mm,
how that thought has evolved over the years. And one, it does, I think it evolved in part thinking about the customer experience and really putting myself in the shoes of the customer. And again, too, at first, actually, I would break apart kind of onboarding and CSM typically when it comes to charging, and say, if you're thinking about charging for onboarding, it's a separate topic. It should be addressed in a separate light, because there's typically a lot of true consulting that you would do at that stage in a customer, depending on your product.
mhm,
So I do think that there's value there 100%. If you have a product that's really complex, if you have a product that takes not just some simple configuration, but you need to think through the configuration, you need to know what other customers are doing. There's a lot of value that you can provide to that. Now, on the other side of the coin, though, so there's value there, and I think it is 100% fine to have a package where you're charging customers, because you're investing as a company a lot more
mm,
time into that. But I think the difference is that won't leave people in the state that you were left in, how do you communicate to them throughout the sales process and early on that they are getting value that's not just getting your product adopted? Because you're right, the way that you experience that, you're thinking about it from the point of view that most customers are in, saying, wait, you want to charge me extra just so I'm going to use your product in the right way? Well, that of course benefits the company, you know? But I think probably what they didn't communicate and what they should is, we're not just going to help you configure a
Mm,
few things and do this and that. We're going to help elevate the way that you sell because we're a CRM. We're going to help
mm,
elevate the way that you do business. So we're going to come in like
mm,
you hire a big, 5 consulting company and give you business value on top
mm,
of just set it up this way, do this way, do this that way, right? So I think if you tell that story early on and you communicate to them that there's a huge amount of value to the business, and again, you're investing a lot of time and effort and it's not just configuration, then I think it's
mm,
really easy to say this has a value to your company and here's what we're going to charge, and the customers will come out of that willing and happy. And again,
mm,
when you also are dealing with larger enterprise customers too, they typically have that baked into their mind that they're going to pay for some sort of onboarding. So I think you can meet that expectation, exceed it by giving them a
mm.
lot more value during that process. And the opposite effect that you had with happy that they spent that money because they got so much out of it. Yeah, so I think that's really the key, is how do you position it from the very beginning so people know the full value that they're going to get.
I love this. The way you're suggesting essentially, obviously, you can still charge it. Now, you believe that because if you're providing that value, you can charge it and you should have that line items maybe. But where the experience I had, it was because how they communicated that value. And so it's an art of
Mm-hmm.
whoever is the salesperson explaining that this is what the value that you're going to get. And then it doesn't become as a surprise later on that it felt like I
Yeah.
got tricked. And that's not what you're suggesting. Because I remember they had not told me during this onboarding or during selling. And when I reached out to them, that's when they said, oh, now here is another package that you can buy. And that's when it felt like, oh, this is a bad experience. But Mark, the way you're saying now,
Yep.
if I may want to even go a little deeper, shouldn't there be then a case where, hey, there's a basic configuration that we include for free, but if you want more advanced configuration, maybe your company has more advanced workflows and some additional larger teams, and maybe you have custom
Mm-hmm.
implementation requirements, that's where there's a premium package. So that with the perception, if they would have told me we onboarding is
Yeah.
included, we'll help you get set it up, you get one call, something like that, that's what it is. But by the way, we also have a premium
Mm-hmm.
package. If you need more onboarding sessions, more trainings, more implementation sessions, then we are going to charge you more. Then it would have had a little
Yep.
bit better effect on my mind when I read that thing. That's not how also it happened. So maybe
Yeah.
is that the right way to perceive that, hey, there's a basic package and there's a premium package. So suddenly I still feel that I am getting customer success for whatever I paid for as a software as a service. But then if I need more, yes, I got to pay more.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree there. And that's one other item I was going to bring up where my thought process has evolved, because when I think about too the customer experience for a pretty plain vanilla implementation, there used to be this kind of camp that any implementation you need to charge for because you have resources going towards this. I actually
Hmm.
think it's a crutch that a lot of companies use for a poor
Hmm.
product experience, and this is really where my
Hmm.
thoughts have changed, where now I do agree, and I think you summarized it well. Out of the
Hmm.
box, you should provide a key service to get people up and running quick. That also though should evolve over time, because if you really think about it, even a pretty complicated tool, you need to make your product and iterate on your product so the onboarding is seamless and easy. I remember years ago, like everyone, this is probably 10 years ago, right? Everyone's talking about the consumerization of IT, right? And how IT is changing and how everyone is bringing their personal devices in and this is changing things. That still isn't the case in a lot of software, though. A lot of software
Yeah.
people do
Yeah.
say, well, no, you have to have this this implementation package in order to get up and running. And I think, again,
Yeah.
that's just a crutch that people are, honestly, I think, kind of being lazy and
Yeah.
letting a services team come in and fix some gaps.
Yeah.
So as you mature as an org, I think you even take that out of the box kind of plain vanilla implementation and you automate all that
Yep.
in a way that is so easy for the customer, where they can get value on day one. An hour into using their product, they can get value, and you don't need someone just to config and have a few little sessions with them. But still, with that, you'll have people that will say, I need to know best practices. I need to know, how do we take this from this level really up to here?
Yep.
And again, I think of it more as like a consulting service that you provide with that higher tier, implementation package, where you're going to give them tons of business value that's going to be worth it. You help with change management and all the other soft things that aren't just the setup of the actual application.
I love this. I remember we had our one of our previous sessions, podcast episodes. We talked about myths about product-led growth. So the consumerization of enterprise goes to this whole
Mm-hmm.
product-led growth, where the product is easy to get started with. People are driving the growth because individuals are using the product itself. So the whole bottom-up adoption trend that everyone is talking about. And I think one of the myths that people have is that, oh, our enterprise company, we have these complex implementation requirements, and that's why we cannot be product led. And the way I was trying to bust that myth was that it's not about, you should not think that
Yeah.
individual consumers are going to buy your software. We understand some enterprise softwares where you need to go through the entire procurement process, security review, compliance, all of that process. Nobody's denying that. But just because if you keep denying that you cannot be a product led growth company, the problem happens is that they throw people at different problems. So they'll have more implementation success managers, more customer success managers, rather than hiring engineers and fixing that onboarding flow, making your product as self service as possible. So you can still have a
Mm-hmm.
complete enterprise sales process, but by investing, by thinking that we can be a product led growth company, or how should we become a product led growth company, that will make some parts of their software or product lot more self-service, and it would give better experience to their end users, to the leadership, on whoever is the user of the person of the product itself. One of the things I used to think about this whole adding it as a line item, I felt it's one of those sales tactic where you just say that, hey, I'm gonna charge you $5,000 extra for customer success, and during negotiation you say, okay, that's fine, I'll reduce you the $5,000 that I'm going to charge you, and suddenly you feel that, wow, I negotiated the best price. Do you believe that people do that, or have you not seen that?
No, I have seen that. And again, I think it even goes back to what we were just talking about. If you don't enable your sales team really well, so I think it starts with sales enablement. So as a CS leader, if I say, okay, it is now time, we have the right product maturity, we have a lot of value we can provide, we're going to say charge for an implementation. Or I know we've talked a lot about implementation. I also believe there's an area where you can add value charging for a CS package that
Hmm.
includes, some additional CSM items. It includes some more technical services like a TAM, but you're packaging together a lot of highly consultative items that will really add value. But what you need to do when you say, okay, I'm ready, and say you start with the easy one, we're going to charge a fee for onboarding at a high service level.
Hmm.
To roll that out to sales first, you need to make sure that they really, really understand what the value
Hmm.
is. Because a lot
Hmm.
of salespeople will come from past jobs where they have
Hmm.
been in this exact same model where they've had it as a line item, it's a certain percent, or for implementation, many times there's tiers. You might charge
Hmm.
for a medium account 20,000, for a larger account 60,000, for a huge account 200,000, whatever that range is. And they're
Hmm.
used to being able to discount that at any amount. And they
Hmm.
typically, because of that too, do exactly what your experience was, where near the end, they've spent 2 months selling. Near the end, they're getting ready for a quote. and they just add that in, and then they explain it to the customer. The customer says, whoa, I don't know. Okay, let's just discount it to zero. The customer may think that they are a good negotiator, but a lot of times they see through that and they think this was just a garbage
I
line item that you
agree.
tried to add in. You're trying just to pull one over me. So, I think first you have to just really sit down with them, show them that this is a really extra value add, and make sure that they get that and they agree with that.
Yeah.
And then, you roll out with your sales leadership too. So you, of course, ahead of time, meet with sales leadership and make sure that they are good with, here's how you're going to price it. Here's
Mm.
the flow for discounting. Here's the max discount. Because I have seen this where I've in the past myself even rolled out
Mm.
a professional services package quickly. Okay, here's what it is. All right, let's go. Okay, sales real fast. Sell this. It's 50,000.
Mm.
Even if you're comped on it, go for it. And people would discount it to zero because we didn't do a good job in selling that value internally. And with that, we kind of changed gears, enabled the team, got sales leadership on our side, and said, you can discount, but you can only discount 20%.
Mm.
So there is value here if you
I
do a
like that.
great job. And if you bring us in too, bring in the implementation person in, bring in myself to a sales call so we can show them. But it also has to be packaged. Like, have the other thing that you need to do is have case studies of customers that have gotten good value through implementation. Let customers speak to other customers as a reference around the value that they got and that consultative value that they got in implementation. So if you have that and it's all packaged together, then you should be able to sell it and limit the discounting so it's not just an afterthought, basically.
I like that. I think that subtlety, that if you'll cancel the entire line item, it becomes that this was something BS that you had added and it was never a real thing, but you
Yeah.
still continue to explain the value and you give a little bit of discount. That's totally okay. Maybe 20%, as you said, then customer still believes that it is something real and you did not just add it as a negotiation line item. So that's a great point. This whole topic we talked about adding this customer success as a line item. Another observation that I had, a lot of people have these tiers of SaaS plans, and they would say that their top tier enterprise plan or some kind of business plan, they would say that that's where you would have dedicated customer success manager. And obviously, the price for that plan per user, whatever the thing that you have, metric that you have, is probably higher. So isn't it better, rather than adding this line item, you bake that price in the pricing of the subscription itself? And that way customers don't feel tricked that I'm being charged one more time. You're saying that, hey, this is how the subscription plan are going to go. And maybe the middle plan that you might have could have customer success, but it may not be a dedicated customer success. And with the enterprise plan, you have a dedicated account manager who might be flying into your office and all of that stuff. So, or maybe you can say we can do quarterly business review with you. And so you can explain the value from that point of view. Which option is better in your opinion?
Yeah. So I think that if you're just talking about having a CSM and maybe a QBR and other things, I think it's actually best to say that is baked into the pricing and that's baked into your offering, and it's slightly
Mm.
different for different levels. But then the addition that I would have to that is, even with, say, someone buys your enterprise plan, with that you're saying you are including a CSM.
Mm.
Because the other side of the coin too is, if you did charge a line item just for, say, it's CSM, it's just a simple line item, it's an uptick, you're getting a CSM, you're getting a QBR, and say you had a customer that's, they're on your top plan, they're brand new, they're paying you seven figures, so they're paying you, say, 1.5 million in ARR. Are you not going to have anyone dedicated to that account and the potential could be to grow that to 6 million over 3 years? Would you not have anyone on that account? Of course you would.
Absolutely.
So if you rolled out, oh, it's a line item just for the CSM piece, and they decide not to purchase, then what do? You're going to give them a CSM, but then their experience is weird because they are buying thinking they're not going to get one, and right after you say, okay, and here's your designated CSM, and let's set up your first QBR, again, they'll see through that and say, oh, you were just trying to get an extra piece. So
Mm.
I think there's value in adding that line item in where you have a designated person. This person will know your account. They will provide business value. But then on top of that, I still really believe you can sell them a service bundle that also says, okay, you have, besides the CSM that's included, you're going to have a designated CAM. You're going to have, additional support that you get in terms of SLAs. So is it important that you have every support inquiry, responded to within 2 hours? We can do that for you. So you take things that may be under still the CS org umbrella, maybe not, but you still take things and package them together. You also say, we'll give you additional certification. So, say you have a university that you built and it provides a lot of rich content and you charge people $1,200 to go and get certified. You can give them 10 certifications. So I've done that in the past where you still include in the higher package a designated CSM. In the mid packages, you include a CSM, but it's not designated. It's a pool of a team. But then you also have this packaged service that you can sell that, again, just has to go back to making sure that there is value there. It's not just a few little things you're throwing in to pad the ARR. You need to make sure that it's something unique, something different, something that adds value to them. And sometimes you just need to have conversations with customers too. Like if you're new and you're not doing this, one of the best things to do is go and talk to 20 customers, see what their needs are, ask them, well, hey, if you have some of these needs that are really unique to your business, like it's not something that's overall, but you're trying to solve a very specific problem for your business. We have insight into that. We can help you. We can consult with you. Would you pay for that? And you'll quickly learn, if there's value there, and and what that potential may be.
That's an interesting, and this is again the same point where I had a point of view. I thought that instead of charging a line item, why don't we just say that bake it into the subscription plan and make it transparent? That's where the modern pricing would be. There is no hidden fee, no hidden customer success fee. But one way would be to your point that if you're adding that as a line item, sometimes large enterprise customers want to be explicitly called out that I would have that dedicated person that I would go and
Mm-hmm.
get the help. And when you add that as a line item, they would notice it probably more importantly. Maybe you could, the way
Yeah.
thinking about this, doing it more modern way, you list that down on the website itself where you're talking about the pricing and everything. So that would be, at least you're again being transparent, and people don't think that, oh, I didn't know this
Mm-hmm.
and now you're asking me to pay more. So that's where the bad experience comes in and customers feel like they were betrayed. So we want to avoid that, and that's where we can be more
Yep.
transparent. One of the things I was thinking about this was, when I started reading this whole post, the thought was that, do people do this because they still think customer success as a cost center versus really a growth asset? Because when you think about cost center, then you're trying to cover your cost, and that's how people want to add this line item, versus truly thinking, who cares? If you're going to be happy, if you, our customer success team, help this customer retain and grow this account with us, why not invest, and why not basically have them continue to work on it without charging customers? Do you still think that's still what's going on?
Yeah.
And I agree, a lot of the things that you shared today, I did not have this perspective, so thank you very much for sharing those additional insights that I was missing. But still, I wanted to touch upon this topic that, do you believe that there is somewhere, the whole reason that you still want to charge is that you're trying to cover the cost? If somebody is investing time, more time with this account, and not thinking that, hey, it's increasing our lifetime value, it's increasing our net retention that this customer is going to have with
Mm-hmm.
us, so why not have a long-term perspective? And why are you looking at this short term that, oh, they're spending time, so we got to cover that cost because our unit economics are not, the margin is not great anymore?
Yeah, no, I have had a lot of conversations in the past around this, and I think there's two pieces that are important. One, I mean, I 100% see CS as a growth engine. You are there to make sure that gross churn is as low as possible, that not
Mm.
many logos are leaving, that you have that product feedback loop that's really strong and you're making the product better, that your net retention is super, super high because you're
Mm.
driving additional adoption throughout the organization and, working on upsell and cross-sell opportunities if that applies to your business. So I think it is a very, very heavy growth engine in a SaaS company. But at
100%.
the same time, I've had many conversations with CFOs in the past around margins. And I think as a
Mm.
business, and as a leader, you should know what your margins are. You should be aware of the financials. You should know that depending on where you're at as a company, again, if you are, a Series A, Series B seed company, I would throw a lot of the ratios on CSM to
Mm.
customers away, and I wouldn't try and say, well, we need to have a onboarding implementation team that breaks even or has X margin. So I wouldn't worry about it, and I wouldn't design your team around that, but I would be conscious of it for sure, because as a CS leader, you need to know the business and how you're impacting the business for sure. So you need to know that, but you shouldn't be driven by that, if that makes sense.
Understood. No, I love it. Thanks for that extra. Again, always these insightful thoughts here. Mark, we are coming across probably 30-minute, 33-minute mark here. Last thing I would say that I think everything that you shared completely resonated with me. I definitely, you opened my eyes on a lot of these areas, how to think about it. But if there is any parting advice that you would like to give, any takeaway in terms of what is the modern way of charging customer success, what that
Yeah.
advice you would give to our audience here?
Yeah. I mean, I would actually sum it up in one way where I would say keep it simple
Mm.
as much as you can, because these things can get really complicated. Again, you
Mm.
might say, okay, we're going to charge for PS by hours or by buckets of hours, and then we're going to charge for CSM and then support and then certification and all these things, and you can pick and choose from this menu. I think first keep it really, really simple. And again, just make sure that it is the right time at your company.
Mm.
You're like we talked about at the start, your product is really mature, your org is mature, you're ready to deliver that value. You have a whole package that you can present to customers. And then you just keep it really, really, really simple, where here's one option. It is a premium option, and here's why, because there's all these additional things we're going to give to you, but then everything else is still again included, so you're making sure you're driving your business value, and that's it.
I love it. It's a great way to end the conversation. Keep it simple and charge it based on the stage of the product, stage of the maturity of the organization. Thank you very much
Yeah.
for Mark coming in, sharing all these great insights. And for our listeners, I hope you are enjoying these topics that we are bringing in every week. Do like us, subscribe to our channel, share if there are any insightful thoughts that you found with your internal team members, colleagues. We would always love your feedback as well. So do comment us and tell us what you agree on, what you don't agree, and then we can continue to discuss these topics. And our whole goal is to elevate this SaaS community and become as modern as possible because we can provide the best experience to our buyers. So keeping that as a goal in our mind, we would always love your inputs so that we can continue to discuss great topics here. Bye bye, everyone.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.